okay, cool. And I remember like not having like anything. I didn't have like, zilch, nothing. And I was like, oh shoot, I have like almost that much in my bank account. So I was like, fuck it, who cares? I'll figure it out. And then I got the 3-day event that they were doing, and I remember bringing a friend of mine, and we went down to like the Sheraton by LAX, and we were just there for like 9 to 6, 3 days. We're like, oh my god, you could do this, do that. I was like, what the? And it just like changed like my whole viewpoint on everything.
Weeks, you've been busy spending money. Is that what it is? You spending money now? Is that all you do? You just spend money?
I spent a little bit of money. Yeah, I got a new computer.
There you go.
Yeah, that was good.
So you're in Florida right now, huh?
Yeah, I'm in Florida. My girlfriend's from here, so we're just kind of visiting family and stuff.
Cool. That's great. Yeah. How long are you there for?
I'm here for maybe like a week or so.
Okay.
And then I'll be back, yeah.
Nice. Good stuff, man. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to jump on the line with you kind of just to recap that deal that you did. A little bit of background, share it with some members. I've been verbally telling your story to a bunch of people.
Oh, yeah?
And yeah, people who have never done a deal before. They've been struggling way longer. They've been studying for like 3 years and still haven't done a deal.
Sure.
And just to recap, let's just kind of go back and share from, first share a little bit about your background, how you got started in real estate investing, what you maybe learned, studied from, and then we'll carry on into the deal. So why don't you start there with your background story there?
Yeah, sure. So I've been like a musician my whole life. I've played music, and I play like jazz music, and I went to Berkeley in Boston, and I did like the whole thing. And then I just remember sitting in my dorm room, and I was just like, this is like, I see everybody just kind of just like, doing drugs on the side and like kind of just showing up and like completely like blowing class. And like, I'm like, and then you see like all my idols, because I went and actually took lessons from all those guys, like all the guys that are really like the heavy hitters in the business. And they're living with like 3 other people in like Brooklyn, and I'm just like, what's going on here? Right. I was like, holy crap! So I remember just sitting in my dorm room. I was like, this is not good. I don't want to end up like those guys.
Not what you envisioned for your life.
Yeah. So I was just like, I gotta figure this out. It's like, this is not happening. So I remember going back to LA, and I was like, I don't think I'm going to go back, because I'm like, even though I got a pretty decent scholarship, it's still money that I'm not using towards anything useful.
Sure.
Not to like knock college or any of that, but I meant like, if you want to go that route, that's totally fine with you. Like if you can make that work, that's awesome. Yeah. I just wanted a little bit more like, variety, I guess, more things to work with, more options, and more like financial stability. I didn't want to like worry where all this stuff was coming from. Mm-hmm. So I remember going and seeing a Facebook ad on like a training like seminar, and it was actually for the Fortune Builders. This was the first one I checked out.
Right.
So I remember going to the first meeting, and I remember my mom specifically telling me, like, don't buy anything. Don't do that.
Had she gone to these seminars before? Normally people say that, like, don't buy anything.
Dude, it was then like, she's been to some like network marketing once.
Okay.
So I don't know if it was a real estate one, but I remember she's like, don't buy anything. Don't do it. And then I remember like, I remember checking it out, and I was like, this is great. Why wouldn't I buy the 3-day event thing? It's like, it's only $300 or whatever.
Right.
So I was like, okay, cool. And I remember like not having like anything. I didn't have like, zilch, nothing. And I was like, oh shoot, I have like almost that much in my bank account. So I was like, fuck it, who cares? I'll figure it out. And then I got the 3-day event that they were doing. And I remember bringing a friend of mine, and we went down to like the Sheraton by LAX, and we were just there for like 9 to 6, 3 days. We're like, oh my god, you could do this, do that. I was like, what the? And it just like changed like my whole viewpoint on everything.
Right.
So I spent like the next, I don't know, 6 months to a year trying to figure it out, and then I realized like, well, I didn't have like 10, 20, $30,000 to spend on that sort of stuff.
Well, I want to roll back there to the part where you said you went to that first free seminar. Just to interject there, I
Yeah,
remember my first event. I went with this, huge conference. It was actually
yeah,
my ex-fiance's dad who kind of pushed me to go. He's like, if you want to marry my daughter, you got to read this book. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I didn't read it the first time he gave it to me. I
yeah,
kind of just skimmed through it. And he's like, what was in chapter 6? I was like, I don't know. He's like, then you're not marrying my daughter. So I went back to go read chapter 6.
oh my
And,
God.
I just got so into it. I remember being at a seminar, and I'm not kidding you, the ticket was $97 for that 3-day event.
Yeah,
Different company, but it was a 3-day event, and it was $97. Did you know I sat in my seat and I said, $97? I'm like, I don't think I want to pay that. And listen, I had the money.
yeah,
But my fiance on the side of me, I'm not kidding you. She's like, come on, I know you want to do this. She's like, fine, I'll go pay for it. And I'm like, no, you're not paying for it. So I got up and I had to go pay for it. Let me tell you, those 3 days, she went with me those 3 days, and those 3 days absolutely changed my life.
Man.
It just blew my mind. So I just wanted to recap that, because a lot of people, they get stuck in that situation. Like, should I go forward? I know it could be 10,000, 30,000. I remember seeing a number up there. It was 108,000. I'm like, good Lord, who pays that kind of money for but when you compare it to college,
Yeah,
it's almost like, it's either sometimes cheaper or the same depending on what college you go
yeah,
to, and all that stuff. But I totally understand it. So you took a step forward, you figured out a way to make it happen. And so recently you had, tell me, I don't want to get into the part where you did close your deal just yet. I want you to share a little bit about the part after you said, wow, this is a little bit more easier than I thought. I was overcomplicating it. And the steps to the point where you got a deal. Share some more about that.
So I remember chiming into Larry Gowen's webinar before I had ever met him, or because I went to a 3-day thing of his as well, which was actually, I don't know if, I think it was free because I got like the Filthy Riches thing or something like that.
Sure.
But I remember just chiming into the webinar, and then he was just going like, oh yeah, like a house like this can work and a house like that can work. And I was just like, it's like, what is he doing? Is there some like crazy process that he's doing in his head that's like, oh good, because it's 5 more square feet on this end and it's in this part of town. And I'm just like, I was like, I don't know how he's doing this. Like, why, how does he know that this property is good? And then and then I realized, like, after like I met him or whatever, I was like, oh, any property is good. It could be like perfect condition. It has everything to do with the price you get it at. So I'm like, doesn't matter. I meant like, you don't want to go like picking a property that's just like, like a $2 million mansion that doesn't need any work. Like, like no one's going to be okay with you buying it cheaper.
Right.
But that's kind of my realization on it. I was like, oh, you don't necessarily need to, go, bonkers over like one small, detail.
Right.
Like it's very much like it's a much easier game than, a lot of people like to make it.
Yeah, and to clarify, what you're saying is most people, investors, don't realize that you make your money on the buy, not on the sell. And to clarify that is what you get, what you pay for the property, how much you pay for it. If you overpay, then you're not going to make money when you try to exit the deal. But if you pay for it get a great price on it, then you're going to make money on your exit, whatever exit that is. So it's what you get it for. Yeah, that's great. So tell us about a lot of the offers when you started making offers, that process.
Yeah.
And also, I know your frustration and the challenge you had with it, but share some of that.
Oh my God, I had a pretty rocky start, but it was very like there's a lot of like moving particles, so it was interesting. It was like a good learning process. I remember making some offers, and then nothing would get accepted, and like, was there something I'm doing wrong, or like why am I getting so like so much like like why am I getting like the backhand, like this is like weird. But I remember like I would call some realtors and they'd be like, oh, because then I would do like the whole Larry thing of like, oh, if this property doesn't work out, try to get more referrals, right?
Yeah.
So I remember asking this one lady, I was like, okay, this, doesn't look like it's going to work out on this one, but is there anything else I need to make an offer on today or whatever? And then and she was like, oh, if you're going to make, an offer this low on the other ones, I'm not going to do that. And then she just like hung up the phone and like blocked my number. I was like, oh, great. This is going to be so easy. Yeah.
I love this business.
And then I started like just tinkering a little bit more, and then I was like, wait, I need a proof of funds and an EIN number. I'm just starting to get like, what is this like? But I figured out like, okay, good. So all they ask for are like, these 4 things, and I just like, okay, good, save that in one area. Save my terms and conditions, all that in one area, and then all I have to do is just email the realtor, be like, okay, these are my terms and conditions. Here's everything I need. Boom, send it. So it's all in one place, and I have it in like my Evernote, and I just literally copy paste it in my real estate notes, and that way I'm not like, oh, is it the 3 clauses this?
Right.
And it's like all confusing.
Yeah.
But if you have it in one place, that I found that to be easier, and it's like faster process. The other thing is, I remember like, making all these offers, and I got stuck and I didn't know what to do. And then I remember calling you, and you'd be like, okay, you could probably do this and that and this. Just like little tweaking, because every area is different. Try different areas, go a little bit further out, move your price points. Right. You can even do 80% and do like, cheaper deals. There's like different things to go check out and, tinker. And I started to see stuff pick up. I was like, oh, okay, more offers were accepted. And then I found that it was difficult to like sell it because my buyers list wasn't really solid. And I just kind of like throughout this last year, I'd really like learned like, oh, okay, good, don't do that. Okay, good, do this. Okay, good. That's like a giant like checkbox, or a checklist of like things to do and not to do just from experience. It has nothing to do with like learning it on paper. So I found that very helpful, but I would make all these offers and nothing would go, and someone would go under contract, and then I'd get a buyer, and then he would back out, or like the seller, and like all of these like just like it's all this randomity of like, remember that?
I remember those days. Let me just clarify it. Let me just share another side of the story. I remember times where you would you'd have something under contract, and maybe it wasn't such a great deal, but you had it, and then you're like, okay, what do I do with it? And then you'd say, okay, we got to market that thing, and you built quite a few buyers, but maybe it wasn't as solid or in the right area, that kind of stuff. But one thing I commend you for, James, is your attitude of never giving up, and like the attitude of, so what if they say no? Right? So what? I'm just going to keep trying, right? Sure. And I think a lot of people get stuck on that. I remember telling you that, like, man, what you're doing is right. And I remember this. You would say, really? And you'd be like, yes. You got it, man. I remember saying, man, just keep making those offers, because your process and your actions were right. Even though you had to make those tweaks along the way, still everything you were doing and learning was really positive. Even like you said, even though you had to come up a little bit higher in the first offer, because the way the market is right now, you would get more under contract than if you were down maybe 60%, 65%, 70%, and all that. So yeah, those little tweaks make a big difference. So I just wanted to say that and give people the other side of the story there. But yeah, all right. So you made a bunch of offers. You got some accepted. Tell us about that deal that the one.
Wait, there was 2 that were like that stood out. The one that I closed, obviously.
Yeah, and the one before that.
And then the one before that, oh god, it was like there's like 10 different parties involved and like 15 contracts, and like I don't know. Are you talking about that one?
I was talking about that one. Yeah, we can talk about the one you closed in a minute, but there was one that you had that, like you said, there was like so many moving parts. And you had, I think you had what, 4 buyers or 3 buyers that were interested, right?
It was another wholesaler.
Okay.
2 buyers were interested. One buyer was the one that worked with the wholesaler, but I didn't get that contact from that wholesaler until I talked to another wholesaler who referred me over to that one. So I was
Right.
like two
Yeah.
wholesalers and a buyer and another competitor. And then the whole situation on the other side with the sellers was like just like complete madness.
Yeah.
Um, so I think this guy's name is Bill, but I remember calling Bill and then trying to put this property under contract. And then I make the offer, right? It was like listed at like 60 or something. ARV is around 90. Ended up buying it for like 25.
Wow. Whew.
Yeah.
What a deal. Slam.
Yeah. And then I negotiated it even more. I got it down to like 20 or like something like that. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I think it started at around 30 or 33. And then I got it down to all the way down to like 20 or 25,000.
Wow.
But it was funny, like, because I was working with a friend of mine at the time on this. If you remember Alex, he's the one who actually put that under contract, not me. So we would do this thing. We would look at all the properties on Zillow and everything we can get our hands on, like just whatever it was, and then just list them. We put it on a Google Drive, and we figure out, okay, like we had like a little box for repairs, a little box for bed and bath, and like the property, and then notes after like the realtor, and like if we called them or not, this whole thing.
Yeah. Right.
And I remember he was like, "Dude, it's accepted." I'm like, "Okay, great, awesome." What do we do now? I'll call you, and then
Call Nathan.
and I remember being in Thailand because I'm half Thai. If you remember that, I was in Thailand.
I remember.
It's just like my friend was in LA. And we were like trying to figure out how to do this, and then I was like, "Fuck!" Like, and we were calling you, and it's like in Thailand, and we're like dealing with all these different time zones, and then you referred me over to like Monica, and then I was like, "Okay," so Monica's another wholesaler, and then we're like, "Okay, good." So she'll take a $2,500 fee for finding a buyer for me. So she finds Don, who is not exactly a buyer; he's like another wholesaler. But he works with like this team. So I'm like, oh my God. So Monica is going to refer me over to Don, who's going to get other buyers that I'm never really going to end up meeting. But they're going to buy it. So I'm like, okay, good. That's works or whatever. And then they wanted too low. They wanted like 30,000. Like, so I'll buy it for 30,000. I'm just like, what? Like, no. Like, that means I'll make like $1,000. Like, no. So I was like, can you do 35? Can you do this? Can you do that or whatever? And I'm just like, it's starting to give me a headache. I'm like, oh my God, like just if you buy it literally for 33, I'm like, okay, good. That makes that I get 2-3K. I'm okay, fine. But he wouldn't even do that. I'm like, oh great. So now I go back, and this is where I renegotiated the deal from $30,000 to cheaper. So I'm like, hey, I need an extension. It needs more work than I thought. This whole thing, like, you know, I'm like, and they're like, oh, okay. And then they came back and they accepted it because they're like this. And it turns out the seller are 4 like elderly women that are like all sisters or like cousins or something that inherited it from some daughter or somebody that passed. And they're all like in like in this huge state of like, they're all crying, and they're like, this is the last thing we have of her, and we don't want to get rid of it. And I'm like, oh my God. And Bill's like, yeah, we close Monday, or that's it. The deal's off. And I'm just like, well, we've come to an agreement with the price. Like the price is fine, but we can't close Monday because nobody can close that early. Like you got to do this, you got to do that. Right. I said like, you know, it's never like exactly. So they basically were like, it's either Monday or we're out. And I'm just like, oh my God, I've already negotiated the deal down twice, had an extension, negotiated Monica's fee down to like 1,000 or 1,500, and then figured out with my partner that we're going to split profits, and then try to negotiate further with Don. And then Don finally came up a little bit, and then it's like Monday and all these girls are crying, and then this whole thing, and I was just like, oh God, the entire thing fell through. And I was like, oh my God. This is the most exhausting thing ever. But I was like, okay, good. So don't do that like in the future.
Right. That was the don't do. I remember that.
Don't do that one.
That was crazy. Yeah.
That was unbelievable. I remember calling you that one time and just freaking out and be like, okay, I'm going to draw some lines now. Remember that?
Well, Well, I do want to add in here something that you brought up earlier when you brought up Alex, by the way. A lot of people, and again, I commend you for this. And it was something right in the beginning. Okay, it wasn't in the beginning when you started real estate, but when you and I started working together, one of the biggest things I found about you was delegation. Like, you quickly identified what you were good at, what you were not good at, and you went for team building pretty quickly, more than average in the clients I work with. So when you started working with Alex, and I'm going to forget a bunch of other names, but you started working with like 2 or 3 other people, and you're like, here's what we can do, and here's how we can do it. You had a great overall view of that. And I think that's going to come around again for you in the future as you scale and build your business. And that's something that I think you found really quickly, because you're always big on systemizing and automation. How can I systemize this? How can I make it organized? And that with that dauntless attitude of just like, hey, I'm going to go in there, I'm going to make offers, I'm going to get on the phone with sellers and do it. You got the results. So let's transition into the next deal here, the one that you closed recently.
Okay. So I was kind of like a little bit fed up with everything. Like, I had, Alex kind of just left and did his thing, and now he's doing great right now. He's just doing something else. But then I worked with like Tyler and Natalie and like Garrett and like all these other people, and then I was just like, okay, like, and I just found out that like, like you really got to be on top of your stuff if you're going to add other people in, because I found that we were delegating and planning and this whole thing the whole time and not actually doing anything. So there'd be little production and just tons of like, oh, let's meet up for this. We got to talk about this. And then I was just like, it's like the big thing that just went out the window is produce. I did not produce anything. I was like, oh my God, this is the least productive I've ever been. So I've been more productive on my own. So something I learned, like going into the future, that if I'm going to add more people and build it up and sort of thing, is that you got to have all that stuff in place already and have like a steady, daily target of like, okay, this number of stuff goes out this day, and by the end of the week you should have this. So it's like it should be already set and not like you're planning with other people. It's like I'm the one who owns my company. I don't need to have people tell me like, oh, maybe what if we did this? And I'm like, no, it can't work that way because it has to work this way, because trust me, like I talked to Nathan and Nathan was saying this. Like it was like exhausting. So I was like, okay, good. No more of that. But anyways, transitioning to this deal, I remember like, not working with anybody at the moment. It's just myself. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go into everything and just kind of just like scrap everything out and start again. Not completely. I had some good contacts and good.
Oh yeah,
people,
definitely.
So
right.
I had a lot of stuff going that was great. I just was, kind of like doing everything on my own for this one. But I remember calling a realtor that Natalie had reached out to, and they were talking back and forth, and I was like, hey, Natalie's not working in this part of the business anymore or whatever, so I'm just going to be taking over whatever you guys were doing, and we just picked up from there. And we were talking back and forth, and this is like a buyer's agent, because I was like, oh, I should just work with buyer's agents because they'll just submit any offer I want without any like Q&A. Yeah. So I remember talking to her, and she's great. I still work with her. Like I'll submit offers like she's like, as many as you want. I'm like, really? So I can send like 100 over and submit them all. She'd be like, yeah, I mean, I couldn't do it all at once, but like maybe like throughout the week. Like I'm like, this lady's awesome. So I would go in and find all these properties that I want, and I would pick like matrix from like realtor sites, like where they'd have their own listings, and I would literally anything I get my hands on, any lead or whatever, I'd make a whole list of that. And I remember just sending him over to Cassie, be like, offers, make them. And then finally I'm like, hey, we got one under contract. I'm like, great, awesome. And I remember I did make this mistake. I could have profited more on this deal if I had known this, but whatever formula you guys work off of, like times 0.7 minus repairs minus your profit minus closing costs, whatever, that's like the way to go. There's no other way to do it. Right. Yeah, like if anyone that thinks like, oh, just do 35% of ARV to get the offer out quicker, or like I was like, I didn't make as much as I should have because of that. Because I was like, oh, I'll just get the offer out and then renegotiate it. It's like, it's not a good idea, really.
Yeah.
But I found that because that's how I did it. I did the ARV and then I just made the offer like around 35% of that.
Okay.
And then sent it over and it got accepted. And I was like, okay, great. And then I, tried to market it. I marketed it to RIA groups, marketed it to other buyers, and I wouldn't get anything. This thing would go on for weeks. And I'm like, oh my God. So I was calling you like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? But I'll just try to negotiate it down. I'm like, okay, fine. It's already low. It's already at 13,000. Am I supposed to lower it even more? So you're like, yeah, just lower it more. I'm like, okay, good, great. So I asked them, like, could you lower it? And they're like, no. I'm like, okay, good, great. So I'm not going to have to find a buyer. This is great. This is not working out. So I'm like, fuck it. I'll just move on. This is not a deal. So what I did was I told Cassie, because because Cassie's doing all this work, and for me to say, oh, this deal's not going to work, it's going to like piss her off. So I'm like, how can I do it to where I don't lose this contact? So I called her up and I'd be like, hey, I realized that this property, is, it's not going to sell for what I thought. And it's going to need more work than I thought. And then I tried to like come up with something because I had a contractor go out there for free to do like a free estimate.
Yeah.
Tell me that it would need a new roof in a few years. And I'm just like, Ooh. So I kind of like used some of that, and they're like, yeah, he says it needs a new roof, and I was just trying to talk about the property and not so much about the fact that she's doing all this work.
Right.
So I tell her that. I'm like, hey, look, it needs more work than I thought. And I tried to negotiate it down, but she said no, right? Like, so I don't know what to do. Like, we'll keep poking at it and see, if something comes up. It's like, well, just tell her like, take it for like 10 grand or something, or it's like not a deal. All right.
Right.
And then she was like, okay, yeah. So I remember going to sleep that night and then waking up and then seeing this text from Cassie. And then
I remember that morning.
They accepted it. I'm like, oh, fuck.
I remember that morning. I remember
like,
getting your text.
Because now I have to find a buyer. There's no more inspection fee. There's no more nothing. I'm like, God damn. And then I call you. I'm like panicking. I'm like, what do I do? What do I do? I have 3 days to find a buyer. Like, I got to find. I'm like freaking out, panicking. I'm like, oh, God.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, what do I do now? So I contact everybody trying to get a deal. Everyone's just like, yeah, we're going to get some guy over there and check it out. I'm like, I can't do that. No, they need to go now.
Now.
So I was calling Monica, calling Don, calling like my RIA group and like Jack and like all these other people to trying to get this thing moving. And like, and it's funny, like you just got to keep pushing until someone bites, not keep pushing and see if someone bites. So like, true. If nobody bites, what are you doing sitting around waiting to hear someone's response? Like, you just got to keep outflowing and outflowing. Right. So I found that what worked was I kept following up with people. And then but what ended up happening, because my time frame was so short, I ended up trying to buy it myself. I'm like, okay, I gotta find money or funding. So I pulled up online every single like private lending company I could find, every single cash buyer this, private money lending this, crowdfunding this. I was like, this was hammering the phone. Like, what about this? 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 And I kept like disapproved. Oh, we don't do that. We do this. I'm like, oh, okay, great. Ended up finding money from peers, like friends and family, and they all helped me out, and I actually bought the property. And I said, okay, I'll just give you interests forever, how long I need this. Because I knew it was a deal. I just, how long is it going to take me to find a buyer?
Right.
I ended up being like completely chilled out about it. I ended up just buying it. I was like, okay, good. Totally. This is great. No problem. Yeah. No one's buying it right now. So I was just like chilling out on this money. And then again, Don texted me. He's like, hey, hey, you still have that property and we want to buy it. I'm like, oh, cool. Great. He's like, and then he keeps moving along, and I'm like, oh shit, wait a minute. That means I need to close on my property and then resell it. So I'm like, oh god. So then I call my attorney. I'm like, hey, can we close this? Can we close this thing? And she's like, yeah, but you sent the check, and it has 3 days. So I'm like, fuck. I should have just done the wire.
Wait, I gotta clear this up. And I specifically told you, don't send a check. Do a wire.
Yeah.
Bank wires are everything. But yeah, continue. You sent the check.
So that was annoying. And then Don was like, hey, we're waiting on this. My buyer's getting annoyed. I'm like, oh, fuck, this deal actually is not going to go through if I don't close on the property that I had bought. Like, I'm like, oh, this is so So long story short, it ends up working out, but I try to keep everyone, happy by saying, oh, yes, it's coming through. Don't worry. This is going to be a great deal. This is awesome. It's whatever. Like, just completely scratching their back. And then I remember the day it finally went through with my attorney, and then literally within an hour, because those guys have got together, those buyers. I remember within an hour, I was like, okay, good. Snap, turn the whole thing around. Money was in my account. I was like, oh, wow, that was fast.
Yeah. That's awesome.
I was like, great, cool. And I just remember oh, god damn. I literally was sprinting to the UPS office to do notaries because I didn't know what a notary was. And I was like, geez.
Well, let me clarify something here. Let me just, because you said so many important things, but I just want to bring up the fact, one, you closed a deal with none of your own money at first, right? Yeah. You raised money for your deal. You just said you didn't know what a notary was.
No.
The point is and you got one of your contacts to buy the deal. The whole point of what I'm bringing up here is you did all this with determination, perseverance, determination. You don't need to know everything about real estate. And I remember we had a few of these talks, right? And I would say, James, you don't need to know every step of the way, everything along the way. When you need an answer, let me know. I'll get you that answer. Oh, yeah. But to know everything at one time, it's so daunting in the real estate space. Yeah. But you know what? You had the perseverance and the determination, and that's what matters. That's what carries people to the deal. I can't tell you how many times there have been things that have come up on a deal, even after I've closed over 100 deals, and all of a sudden something comes up. I'm like, well, what's that about? How do we figure that out? And all of a sudden I'm calling an attorney and, working something out. Yeah. It doesn't matter. It's just a matter of, continue to push forward. And I congratulate you for that, man. And you saw the results. You said a really important thing that I want people to remember is follow-up. Follow-up. There's fortune in the follow-up. And most people give up, right? Most people will they'll just stop there's nothing else I can do here. They'll win a bid, they'll win a contract, and all of a sudden it's almost like, well, I don't have a buyer, what can I do? And they don't push through. They don't really push through to see it through. And I commend you for doing that because that's what gets results. That's what really gets results.
Yeah, I always look at it two things. One, I always follow this rule of just keep showing up. Because if the day that you don't show up, it's the day that nothing happens. So true. Just keep showing up, and then I just goes, okay, I'm just gonna keep doing it and keep doing it. And I was like, oh, it happened one day, which was great, and it's just a giant learning process for me too. I learned quite a lot. I learned a lot about principal, interest, loans, notaries, this whole thing. It was a great learning process. Yeah. And I always think about the follow up thing as kind of like digging for treasure. The first contact is the first dig of the shovel, right? You make your first dig towards that treasure, and then you're like, okay, there's no treasure. So what are you supposed to put down the shovel? Right. No, you keep digging. The treasure's there.
That's so true.
No debate.
You just don't know how far you have to go. That's so true. That's a great illustration. Yeah. That's so true. That's so true.
I always kind of just keep doing it. It's just keep picking away at it. I just, I found that, and a good way to do that is to if you have your own CRM and you have all your contacts there, you can see exactly what happened. I figured it out. I'm like, okay, what are every single stage you would come across when contacting people, or with properties or whatever. And I had this whole list for realtors or whatever, which ones I like to work with and don't. And sometimes they want to pick up the first 4 times, but that 5th time you call, they'd be like, oh, it turns out that there's like, you're going to work with them for like hundreds of deals. Like, oh, that's the guy, right? Like Cassie, right? Like I called 3 times, Natalie called twice. She ended up picking up, and then I ended up following up with her after Natalie left. And she ended up being the one that closed my deal with me. So I'm like, wow, it's like, you never know.
That's true.
Yeah, so that was a big plus for me. But since then, I've actually incorporated a lot of other stuff. I found a new, like I took that money that I had made, and then I started buying new things or whatever. Like I bought a new computer. I bought more like lead generating software. And I've kind of like a little bit like, made it much more easy to do it and less like scraping around for anything you can find. So it's been a lot easier, and I've been finding more deals that were like, okay, this is not just some dumb offer. This is actually an offer that's a potential deal. Like, and I can see it as I'm making the offer. So that's been good.
That's great, man.
Yeah,
that's great. And definitely, wow, thank you so much for sharing all that. And I know in the near future, we should jump on another call, because I do want to introduce you also to a way to do multiple options in an offer. Multiple options in an offer. So we can discuss that when we have more time and can go over that more in detail.
Yeah.
But thank you for taking the time today and sharing your story and where you've come from and what you've achieved so far. And oh my gosh, that's just I know in the future, maybe a few months from now, maybe a year from now, we could do another one of these and just for a new update, but congratulations, man. Really, congratulations on all your success and what you're doing. And you know the name of the game. Just never give up.
Oh, totally. Cool. Awesome. Thanks, Nathan.
Yeah, bud. No problem. All right. Thanks for taking the time to do this. And I know a lot of people are going to be are really going to be influenced by it as well. In addition to this, I want to let you know I'll send you an email. We updated our new coaching members area. A lot of training videos, more of like technology driven marketing videos about different tools you can use. And there's one that came to mind when we were talking. So I'm going to give you access to that. You'll get an email with it. You can log in, whole bunch of videos on there as well. Cool. It's very technology based and marketing based for the business, for the real estate business.
Nice.
So, yeah, I'll get that over to you, bud. All right, man. And thanks so much for jumping on this call today. I appreciate it. Glad we could do this.
Cool.
All right,
awesome.
Enjoy the rest of your stay in Florida, okay?
Oh, thanks. Yeah, and for everyone who's listening or whatever, let's listen to Nathan.
Thanks, man.
Listen to Nathan.
Thanks, bud. I appreciate that. All right. Talk to you real soon, okay?
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Thanks.
All right. See ya. Bye-bye.